Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sonic Chronicle. My name is Owen, and today I have a new episode in the Casually in Conversation series for you. I know it has been a little while since I had one of these, so I'm really glad to have this out. And, I'm actually delighted to have this out and to be speaking to the person that I'm speaking to. This episode, I discuss making music with an artist that has recently come on my radar that I've put on the channel quite recently, Billy Kazaam. He is a young musician based in London who makes electronic music mixed with punk and is very much all about a concept and all about, I suppose, a character. And we talk about the conceptualization of this character over the course of this interview. Really, really interesting stuff. And the idea of creating a package in order to release your music as part of. So I think that this one is a really, really interesting chat that we had. We cover an awful lot of ground over the course of this conversation, just kind of like gushing over stuff that we love, stuff that we don't like so much, comparing notes a little bit. So I think that this is going to be one to get an awful lot out of. Before we do get on to the interview, though, please do consider hitting the like button. Please do consider subscribing to the channel. And of course, leave comments in the comments section below. If there is any good questions there, maybe I'll pass them on to Billy and maybe he'll be able to answer them for you. With that said and done, let's get this out of the way. And let's move on to the interview. Please enjoy. So, look, Billy, thank you very much for taking some time out of your evening to have a chat with me. I'm sure that you're very busy at the moment.
Not at all. Good, glad to be glad to. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you because I heard about what did I hear about? I heard about your first track. It feels good. When it was released, loved it. Did a little bit of a piece on it. Wanted to get other people involved and to hear it and so on because I think it's really cool. I think it's really, really interesting, right? For a couple of reasons, right? But before I kind of get into gushing, I suppose, a little bit, congratulations on the album, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, yeah. And tell me a bit about the album because it seems like it's a bit of a concept album from my perspective. Is that a little bit off the mark or is that accurate enough to kind of say?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. There's obviously there's the sort of overarching character of the sad businessman, um, and it's sort of just kind of chronicling his, I guess, rise and fall. Um, and then at the same time, sort of just I guess, a bit of a commentary on working culture and or yuppie culture, I should say,
Mm.
corporate culture, um, the fucking Sigma grind set,
Yeah, yeah,
Patrick Bateman bullshit, that I think is like currently on the rise as like a thing to be idealized and
yeah.
like
Mm,
hustle culture. I'm American, and that's very much whatever you think it is in London, it's like 10 times more over there.
mm.
And I guess it was just trying to both criticize and empathize with that um, through telling the story of this character.
Yeah, because when I listened to it, all of those things, immediately sprung to mind, right? Like this, I've made a quick note of it here that it kind of, to me, starts out as a love letter to the sadness and the loneliness of like the white billionaires who build this image of young men that then in turn pay them for the privilege of becoming poorer. But then the sad businessman then, realizes all the things that they've sacrificed before turning things around by the end of the final track, forget about it, right? And all of those things that you've mentioned there have become much much more prevalent with that idea of the manosphere and like Andrew Tate and like the what does he call it, the the Hustlers University or some crap
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
which this big pyramid scheme that he's essentially set up to kind of like dupe all these young men into exactly what you described there, like that Sigma grind set stuff, which load of rubbish, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that I'm not a million miles away from picking up the messaging, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad as well. I'm glad it landed.
Mm.
There's like a fine line of like how much are you trying to tell without being obvious.
Yes.
Um, I mean, I think I look at some of the great like David Bowie concept albums, which are like concept albums, but they don't shout it. You
Yeah.
know, it's always slightly more fun where you sort of it's still open to interpretation. It's not so this is what it is, and this I lent more into the side of sort of like having a message to tell, but I think sometimes that ambiguity on certain subjects and topics of like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? What are you meant to feel from this? Is like a nice sweet spot to kind of aim for.
Yeah, and I think that having that level of ambiguity in there is important to kind of, I suppose, also kind of drive the message that no one is irredeemable in a lot of ways, right? And like we again see that in the album over the course of the album, right? That on Baby Be Mine and like Apology Letter to My Loving Wife, that the sad businessman does talk about that stuff, right? And even there's, I think, on Apology Letter to a Loving Wife, there's like a whisper of who are you, right, by the sad businessman in there, where he's kind of reflecting on everything that has led up to that point. Again, this is my read on it, right? um and that whole thing of who are you that sad businessman, or are you like going to push the emotion to one side and kind of pursue this, again, that Patrick Bateman stuff, or are you going to pursue happiness, right, through love and that you've found with your wife at some point.
Yeah. Well, interesting that that's what you took from it. I mean, I think for me, a lot of that song was and I can only draw from personal experience of like really late nights and working really hard of like you kind of get into this point where I think you kind it kind of the grind set and the hustle of it all becomes your whole identity. Um,
Mm.
I wrote a lot of this album when I was working in a sales-based media company, um, who for legal purposes shall remain
That is absolutely fine. I mean,
nameless.
yeah.
But there was like a part of it of like it was killing me, and it was like I'd come home and I'd be like fucking just wrecked,
Mm.
um, and in this like awful fucking state basically, um, and yet there was this kind of like for me personally of like I'm a bit of a workaholic of like if I stop working, who am I? And a lot of this, a lot of that song, I think, tapped into this sort of like worries about expectations. If you have
Mm.
a partner, not that I believe too much in traditional gender roles at all, but there is still always the kind of level of like, can I provide for my partner?
Hmm.
Uh, am I able to yeah, if I can't provide for you, then who am I? If I'm not working my ass off, who am I? Um, and is it worth the like bullshit you have to go through to keep that sense of identity, or is it, or are you just killing yourself for nothing?
Yeah.
And part of Apology Letter was like there's bits of it where it's like, well, I am sorry, but what do you want from me then? Because
Mm.
I'm still working my ass off for you and to build this life for you and this beautiful, like the opening bars of like sort of painting this picture of like I want $1 million for the two of us.
Yes.
I'm doing all this for our future potential kids. If I'm not killing myself for all of this, then who am I? Which is like a weird kind of emotion to deal with of who are you when you're not killing yourself at work.
I wanna spend $1 million, just the two of us. I wanna buy a big old house for just the two of us. I wanna have a couple babies, just the four of us. I wanna make enough so they don't have to worry. I need that $1 million and I need it right away. I don't know how much longer I can really slave away. I'm working late nights, I'm working overtime. The only thing I really feel is something from inside.
Yeah, I suppose it's an interesting, take on it, and it's interesting that we both have these different perspectives on it. And coming back to that whole idea of um, you know, putting art out there and letting people interpret it in their own ways. But I think that we're probably in very different places in our lives, right?
Mm.
Like you know, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say I'm quite a bit older than you, right? Like I've got my wife and my child, right?
Got it.
So when I do listen to that, I kind of hear it as being like actually kind of sweet, right? Of, that it is this thing that is in a lot of ways, as I said, like that idea of looking at yourself and saying like, do I want to pursue this or do I want to pursue happiness, right? Which again kind of speaks to that whole idea of, the culture of work and so on, right? Does it bring you happiness or is it just a means to an end? And for me, in a lot of ways, work is simply a means to an end,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, and I think it definitely is for a lot of people, possibly most people in the world.
Mm.
Um, but it's sort of but part of this album is always drawn from my own experience. I think the original Sad Businessman motif came about when I was working over lockdown doing for Cutco, which is a pyramid scheme in America, uh,
Right.
selling door-to-door knives, like kitchen knives. But it was Zoom to Zoom because it was lockdown.
All right. Very
Insane.
strange.
That's where I got the briefcase originally. And I went through some like crazy, crazy life experiences. Um, deadlines. It was middle of the Portland riots while I was in Portland, and it was like
Wow.
an original sad businessman story of me like riding around on like Lime scooters in middle of lockdown in this businessman suit. Um, and then that was kind of part of it, and then working in this office space that I was working in. Um, seeing older or people who had been in the business a long time and almost romanticizing romanticizing probably the wrong word, but like kind of speculating on that life,
Mm.
and what that might mean if if I had gone it all in on that, what would my life might have looked like.
Yeah, yeah.
Half of it is total speculation, and half of it is entirely based on um, real experiences that happened to me. So it's interesting that those experiences, that sort of amalgamation of speculation and real life experiences, speak so differently to so many different people.
Absolutely. That is the beauty of music, though, right?
Yeah, of course.
Um, Especially when it's, I suppose, these like concepts, right? Like I wouldn't necessarily say the same about my own music because the music that I'm making at the moment is quite aggressive and kind of like wears its hearts on its sleeve about the state of the world and so on and where I stand and things like that, right? Which is what it is. So I don't think that there's too much interpretation there.
Yeah,
But
but that's sick as well though. Like there's if you've got a message to say, that's say it, you know.
exactly, exactly. It is very much leaning on the whole punk ethos at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of your music, I suppose, and coming back to yourself, this isn't your first album, right? You've done a couple before.
Had they have been, I've removed them from streaming.
I
They
noticed that.
go
Yeah.
up. They're all still on SoundCloud. They'll go possibly back up on an archive that I'm working on. Um, yeah, they're cool. I think the problem that I have with them is that they were made as I was learning to make music. Um,
Okay.
so they are very like experimental and weird, and I was in a very different part of time of my life. Uh,
Mm,
Hugely influenced by like hyperpop and 100 gex and stuff like that. Uh,
right.
which is cool. Still love that 100 gex album, thousand gex. I think it's great. But I think it came about as like there were just stuff that was like experimenting and throwing it out while I was experimenting, as
Mm,
opposed to having a cohesive sound and vision and consistent quality that I feel more confident about producing now.
Gotcha. Because I did listen to Into the Void before you pulled it down.
Oh, cool.
And I did think it was very strong still,
Mhm.
right? And you could hear that it was you could hear, like, having listened to, obviously it was before, the full album came out, before Sucker came out. And I'd heard, It Feels Good and Big Fish, and you could hear the building blocks, right, on
Mhm.
Into the Void for those tracks as well, right? And I still think that it's a strong representation, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with, I suppose, keeping them in place, because I did go and find your SoundCloud as well and
Cool.
start listening to a little bit of Castles
Okay, cool.
as well.
Yeah.
And again, like, to hear that progression, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, right? Because we all grow, right, as musicians, like, as we go,
Mhm.
and we all learn new things as we go. And every new track that we put down is completely different to the last one, because we've learned so much because of that previous track, right?
Mhm.
We step on the shoulders of our own giants, right?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think Big Stepper is great. It's really fun.
Yeah, that's the one I got the most complaints about taking down from one of my good friends who's been really annoyed at me about
Mm.
that.
Baby, I need more than that. She says she got a man, but I don't really give a damn. And you should tell your friends that you're not going home with them. And this might be a mess, but I don't care about the damage. Cause when I see her dance, I feel I'm on another side. And see he's on your mind, but I wanna make you mine. And I promise it'd be fine, baby. We can take our time. And I wanna know what makes you tick. Make you some soup when you get sick. We could leave this all behind, your man could suck my dick. I'm a big stepper, number one go-getter. Wrote 100,000 million letters to impress her. She say she got a man, but for you there's no one better. She keep on ignoring me, my ego felt the pressure.
Yeah, they'll all find a place to live eventually. I think the the thing about them is that I am my own biggest critic, especially when it comes to anything creative.
We all are, is what I'll say,
Of
right?
course. But I think that they was things that felt like they were close to a good idea and weren't quite there. Whereas Sucker took 3 years to make.
Oh,
Um, because it was like each bit needs to be so up to this like standard that I set for myself.
mhm.
Uh, and I'm not sure that I hit all of it, but there was a point at which um, it was a totally different album. It was like it was originally called Billy Kazam Isn't a Sucker.
Right.
There was no concept behind it. It was just kind of like a sound that I was experimenting with, which was
Okay.
very kind of like neo soul-y, a lot of like West Coast rap synths,
Mm.
Dr. Dre stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
but in sort of like this sort of like neo soul kind of thing. It was very laid back and it was cool, and it was a lot more singing, a lot less way less aggressive.
Mm.
But it didn't really have any, it wasn't really saying much. And it wasn't until I was sort of making it on the side as well as, working this 9 to 5 corporate job. And it wasn't until I'd done that, then it's slowly started to inform the music.
Mm.
I think the only remaining song from that is Forget About It, which still worked all the way through.
Right. Okay.
And then from there, it was like, oh, I've got this kind of idea and like a story to tell. How do I do it? And then the form followed the function, as opposed to just kind of throwing shit out there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and so that's why all of that stuff has sort of been taken down. And it's still great and it's still work that I'm happy that I made, but I re-listened to it and I was like, do you know what? It feels like there I need to start fresh with a cohesive vision, especially because I think artists that I really love and that I look up to all have like a, at least for each project, but better if it's an overarching kind of look
Mm.
and feel that's thought out and evolves with them. Whereas it felt like I was bouncing around between like Crystal Castles, 100 Gex,
Right.
and which are like, great influences, but it
Hmm.
wasn't really sticking on anything that felt like me. It kind of felt like other people's influences.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, yeah, very, very interesting. Because like, you know, uh, I always think that, I go back and I listen to stuff that I've produced and I've made, right? And all I can hear are the flaws, right?
Yeah.
That's literally all it is, right?
Yeah.
In fact, like recently, I went home to my parents' house, and my parents, my mother always asked me to like go, will you look at this stuff, right? Get this stuff out of my house, right, etc., right?
Mm.
And I looked through an old crate, and I found a little CD that I had made, right, of like original tracks that I'd put together with literally a microphone and acoustic guitar on a crappy old laptop, right? And it was so bad, right? It was the worst thing that I think that I've ever heard, right?
Yeah.
And I'm meaning that from, I suppose, an objective perspective as well, right? Rather than a subjective, right? Because I didn't have any kind of idea of what I was doing, but it was a seed, right? It was a starting point for what I would go on to do, which, I'm grateful for, but man, 15, 14-year-old me couldn't write a song at all. It was so bad. But as I say, that's how we get started. And tell me, how did you get started making electronic music, right? Like the way I kind of look at Sucker is it's kind of like this mishmash of electronica. There's a punk influence in there. There's this hip hop rap fusion in there as well, which again comes back to what you've just spoken about there of like Crystal Castles, Dre, West Coast rap influences there, and they're again right on your sleeve, throughout this record. So how did it get started?
Um, um, well, my dad is he's a composer.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
for he does a lot of film and television. And he was in bands. And he was a producer. So always huge influence, music always in the house.
Mm.
Um, but I was unsure about how to best go about getting it out there. And I still suffer terribly from stage fright. Um, so there was a uni brief about um, escaping. That was the brief. It was just escape. And I was like, oh, okay. How do you escape yourself? Okay, you build an alter ego. Bruce Wayne can't fight the Joker, but Batman sure as hell can. Um, can't go up on stage. Probably shouldn't have said my real name.
I could beat
I
that if you'd like.
thanks.
Yeah.
Um, I can't go up on stage, but Billy Kazam definitely can. So there was a whole project of like branding. I like designed all the outfits. Initially, I had like bleach blonde hair. It's like one silver tooth, big bug eye sunglasses, long before Charlie XCX ever did it. And like this, it was like a bootleg Beetlejuice costume where instead of like black and white stripes, it was just checkers.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I had this whole outfit, and that was like originally kind of how it started. And so for the brief, I was like, oh, I'll make a song and release it. Um, and then from there, I think it was just like, okay, well, now my friend gave me like a cracked version of Logic. I was like, okay, I've got the tools now. I
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
really like doing this. Where do we go from here?
Mm.
And I think I had like a sample pack that I just absolutely rinsed. Um, and that's how Castle started. And then started listening to more kind of like electronic stuff. Crystal Castle's huge influence for Into the Void. And that was made all at like tiny little IKEA desks in
Yeah, yeah.
cramped club closets somewhere. Um, and yeah, that's kind of just how it started, I think. more just because I was like, oh, now I've got an excuse to do it. And I mean, fuck it, you've only got one life. You might as well do the things you want to do.
That is exactly it, right? It's about kind of finding the time and carving out the space to be able to do that as well, of course. But you're spot on. Like, do the stuff that you enjoy. I think I learned that myself. Probably early on, right? That there's no point in like leaning into the stuff that people think that you should enjoy. Lean into the stuff that you should enjoy or that you do
Yeah,
enjoy,
yeah,
right?
for sure. I think that's that best. But I mean, you're gonna die at some point. You might as well have a fucking good time.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, uh, yeah, had a good time for a long time. Now I'm dad, right? So that's how it goes.
But that's still living it up. That's
Oh,
still
sure,
doing the thing you want to do.
absolutely,
I think that
absolutely.
just takes so many different forms, but people are always like scared to like make the jump, and eventually you kind of have to be like, I think there's that line, there's that Pink Floyd line that always motivates me of like, uh,
Taking away the moments that make up the dull day.
well,
Or
it's from Time,
yeah.
it's
The
hanging
time
on,
is gone.
hanging on in quiet desperation.
Desperation is the English way. Yeah.
I'm just like, that's terrible. Well, it's also part of the inspiration for Sucker is um like you know if you reach the top and look back and you've not done any of like the cool shit, or you didn't fall in love and you've made all this money, then like so what?
Hmm.
Who are you? And that was so the ethos enters into all of it.
I always think of no one told you when to run. You've missed the starting gun.
I
You know.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's that those lyrics are just like I think
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
time I'm like not like doom scrolling, I'm like, fuck, gotta get up and do something.
Very much so. In fact, I remember many years ago, way back when I was in college, I was in a band, I was in a metal band, and myself and the guitarist, we were sitting around talking about Pink Floyd as we were wanted to do at the time because we were massive on Pink Floyd. And we were listening to Time, and a mate of mine was like, "Oh, that's gutting. That's horrific stuff." And I was like, what does it matter? And the older that I get, the more it matters. Is the thing.
Yeah,
And
I
that
feel like it's you listen to that song at a young age and you hope that it goes in and someone's like, oh no, no, okay, I need to fucking get on it.
exactly, exactly, yeah. Um. So yeah, you cover a lot of ground musically, right, over the course of the record, right? I think that there's like for me listening to it, and again, I don't have necessarily the same influences, or I suppose the same breadth of, I suppose, experience when it comes to rap and hip hop and so on. But for me, some of the influences that I could kind of hear around there were around like if Childish Gambino was in middle management, right? Or
That's the
like
biggest
some of the
compliment you could have ever given me.
oh, thank you, thank you. Um, or you're welcome even. And I heard like some dark shades in there of like The Weekend, right? So like things like The Hills, right? Seems like it's kind of influential in there. Were those things? Look, I suppose I'm asking for some kind of like validation here, I suppose. But look, were those kinds of things that you had in mind, or are they just kind of me taking my piece of my experience and applying it?
They're not things that I was consciously going like, let me try and do this, but those are artists that are like have been heavily in my catalog
Mm,
forever. The the weekends early I'd say all the way up until I even still like love his new stuff. I thought After Hours was great, and
mm,
um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of his early work, Kissland is one of his albums that nobody really listens to, but I think has got some real cool stuff and weird experimental shit in there.
mm.
I think he's super cool and he sort of pushed what R&B is now to be what it is. Um, the Hills, the Hills went platinum in my house. I mean, that
Yeah.
2015, that song was like on repeat. 15-year-old me loved that. So I'm gassed that you would say that. Childish Gambino, because the internet is one of my favorite albums ever
So
time.
for me, Camp is my favorite album, I think, that he's
It's great.
done. right? But I think because the internet has grown on me, I think it's definitely a grower, right?
Yeah.
But for me, camp was just like very clever, very witty, right? In your
Mhm.
face, um, but very measured and very considered throughout the whole record as well. It wasn't rap like I'd ever experienced it before, I don't think. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's so yeah, hearing Camp for the first time was definitely like, whoa, um, you can do this.
Mm,
Um, because the internet holds a really special place in my heart because it was like the first, I think it was the first time I was like conscious of a concept album.
mm.
Because it had that like real Childish Gambino fans know, like there's that script that he wrote, and then it's like in the script, there's like all these bits where he's like, play this song here.
Yeah, yeah.
The album is the soundtrack to the script, and he even filmed bits of it. And if you like dig on YouTube, you find like all these short films that he made, and he like had this story which felt like cool. I was in LA at the time, and it's all about like rich kids and who have too much money, and would love to have experienced it, but it was definitely all around me. So it
Mm.
was like interesting perspective, and the production on it, I still think is like, I mean, Flight of the Navigator is amazing, and I've never actually thought of it, but you can definitely hear the influence in an apology letter to my loving wife.
Yeah, and I think that you're spot on that the production is very good on that record. And I think that's like I don't want to say it's my favorite thing of it because I don't think that's right. I think Sweatpants is an unreal tune. Um, but again, I do think that as an album, I think it has been a grower for me. It lacked, I suppose the directness of Camp. But
Mhm.
then he followed it up with Awaken My Love, which is my desktop background, which is
Oh my God.
what a piece of work. What a piece of work. Um, Speaking of Childish Gambino's, I suppose, marketing there of the idea of, him making these little films and so on, was that of any influence to you making your marketing for Sucker or for Billy Kazam as a concept and, putting the Instagram account up and, having, I suppose, this very, very low budget kind of viral, I suppose you might call it, right, campaign?
Yeah. I guess so. Subconsciously, I haven't actually thought about that album for a long time. Um, I think it's cool when an album has a world. Um, I'd be lying if I didn't say I thought Tyler the Creator is like a huge influence on me. His world building for like each album is something that I think is so cool. Obviously, a genius producer and a great rapper. But Wolf was his 2012, 2013 album, had this like crazy cool world where all his music videos were part of the same structure and or the same world and different characters, and he had this like aesthetic that was like beautiful. And that was only his like third album.
Mm,
But he as a 12, 13-year old, I was like, holy shit, you can build you can make a movie out of an album. How
yeah.
cool is that? And so I've always tried to I feel like that consistency of like, here's the story you're telling in the album. How do you make it? What does it look like? Um, which is I guess where a lot of that came from, of like spoofing like sales ads or like little kind of vignettes,
Mm,
um, doing yeah, like those sort of 1-800 call now ads, I think are
yeah, yeah.
hilarious. Hi, I'm Tom Mansley, lead senior sales analysis solution officer here at Business Corporation Enterprises. Are your sales low? Underperforming? Are you a sucker? Is this you? If so, call me, Kyle Mansley, today on 1-800-SUCKER so you can get an exclusive one-on-one tutoring with me, Kyle Mansley, where I show you how to not be a little bitch in the business field. Again, that's me, Kyle Mansley, on 1-800-SUCKER today for your exclusive offer. Call now. Um, and like the 80s and businessmen and all of that stuff. So it all just kind of fit perfectly. And I was, fuck it, why not?
Yeah. And, you know, there's an element of putting yourself out there with that as well, right? And kind of, not understanding or not, I suppose, not understanding, not knowing how people might react to it, right? Or if it's worth doing as well, right? There's always that little thing in the back of your mind, right? Well, with any art, I suppose, but I suppose when it comes to the visual aspect, I don't know. For me, it tends to bring up this idea of, is anyone going to watch this, right? Or what's the point of doing this? Like, does this actually support the work in a lot of ways? Did that ever kind of cross your mind, or has that always been part of the concept and the vision for Billy Kazam since it was initially thought up?
Um, well, I mean, I just think it's just so cool to me when it's like the whole cohesive package. Like the album art matches the song, matches the video, matches the promotion. That's
Mm,
all so cool. I think in the world of like, you know, the unfortunate reality of making music, if you want it to go anywhere now, is playing the TikTok algorithm game, which is bullshit, and nobody wants to. I mean, I'm sure some people want to do it, but like I don't. So I was like, how do I do this on my terms in a way that like actually feels like something that I would enjoy doing?
mm,
And the thing I like doing most is world building. And if I can make video content that both promotes the work, this album that I've made, as well as is like cool and world building, and it all fits together, then gotta do it.
yeah.
Um, and I've had a lot of help. I'm very lucky that a lot of my friends are, all of my friends, I should say, are creatives, um, and have been very helpful in test and react and what do you think about this. But yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I think that's great that you have that, I suppose, support group there, right? In a lot of ways, right? And someone to bounce the ball back with, right? I think that that's super important. Like it kind of cuts down, I suppose, on the time of understanding, is this worth pursuing, right? Rather than kind of like doing it yourself, right? And kind of having those thoughts and bouncing it back against the wall that you are also the ball of, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's a challenge to do that on your own. So when you do have other people around you, you do have that other perspective. Like I remember recording my first EP, being in a room like my one of my mates' rooms. He basically set up his own home studio in his college room, right? And we used to go in there and we used to record. And then I put down my solo EP. And when we were in there, one of my mates comes home from work, comes in, sits into the room, and he goes, "What if you did this?" Like, all right, hadn't thought about that. Let's give it a go. Quick, one take concept, right? Just stick
Mhm.
in the track, see how it sounds. Stuck it in. Okay, can hear the seed of it, right? Let's explore this a little more. Put it in properly, put it in a time across the whole thing, chug it, right? Do whatever you need to do. And eventually it was produced and it felt like a really nice, I don't want to say it was a crowdsourcing moment, right? Because it wasn't necessarily, but had he not been in that room, that song probably wouldn't have been as good, or at least definitely wouldn't have been what it was that we had produced at the end of it. So I do think that having those other people around you who are those creatives, who do have that other perspective, who have had other life experiences, to bring to the table, are super, super important to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we were talking about earlier, everyone sort of draws different things
Mm,
from what you're working on and therefore can contribute different things. And I think with something as subjective as music, there's no wrong answer. Um, Actually, I mean there is. I had some people suggest some stuff. I was like, you don't get it.
right. Okay.
But that's okay. That's still like valid input.
Hmm.
But I mean, yeah, I mean there was some suggestions of like, what if you did a drum roll, but it was only 7 drum hits? And I was like, what are we talking about here? That doesn't make sense. Um, yeah, I don't know. But like you said, having that space to bounce stuff off of is so, I think you can't create and avoid. You
It
can't
is,
just,
yeah.
if you sit in a box and don't talk to anyone or do anything for a day, you're going to come out with like one thing. Um, and it's the same with like just like getting influence. I mean, if you just sit in your room all day and make and make and make and make, you're not going to make anything good at the end of the day. You need
Mm,
to, it's a creativity is like a tank. You need to put stuff in to spit stuff out. And part of
yeah.
it is people's opinions, but part of it is consuming media and watching films and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And of course, obviously, then, it before anyone in the comments is like, yeah, but that's how AI works. No, it's not,
No,
right?
it's not.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely
that's
not.
why AI is shit. That's why it can't.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I can't do what we do.
Yeah.
Um, anyway,
Or it steals other people's work. Mm.
exactly. Exactly. Um, so another thing that kind of struck me about Sucker, right, across the album was the monologues, right? Who did the monologues?
He's a very good friend, and I owe him several pints. So if you're watching this, I don't know if he wants me to name him, to be fair. Um,
Fair.
he was someone who I have a lot of time for, and a lot of love for, and he I'm trying to say this without sort of spilling too much personal information about him.
That's absolutely fine.
He was a co-worker at a place that had a lot that gave a lot of the inspiration. And he he had he like I mean you hear him. He's got like the perfect fucking voice.
He does.
And he's a great guy. And uh, I had asked him a long time ago if he'd be interested, and it took some back and forth. But he's older than me, and he's got so much like life experience to draw from. So it kind of just made sense, and he was someone with experience in the field that I was writing about, this kind of
Hmm.
businessy stuff. So he was just this perfect choice. We talked about what he was going to say, and a lot of it was, um, you know, some of it was like to do with this, with the concept of the album. More of it, some of it was more just like life stuff. Uh,
Hmm.
it's all sort of one big monologue that I've just cut up and put through
Yes.
the album, and it was more just like this kind of conversation. But yeah,
It's very cool. And his voice is amazing as well. So if he is watching us, your voice is amazing. I love it. And as you say, I do think that it was for the words that were spoken. I do think that he was the ideal choice, right? Like for for this kind of project, I don't think you could have gotten anyone better. So kudos on that.
Yeah, he was perfect, and he is like ambiguous. Like, is he the like an older businessman giving advice? Is he just some
Mm.
dude off the street? Um, you know, it's very organic. Yeah, it just turned out perfectly. He I couldn't have done it without him, and it just turned out fantastically.
I suppose just thinking about it now and what we were speaking about earlier in terms of Pink Floyd, it kind of reminds me of in on Dark Side of the Moon, the guy who's like that recurs over the course of the album is like talking about dying. I'm not afraid of it. Why should I be? Everybody's got to go sometime, right? And that kind of thing, right?
That was for sure a huge inspiration of because the album was done, and it was like, yeah, it's fine, but it feels like there needs to be like he's almost playing the role of like the ghost of future Christmas future,
Mm.
in uh what is it,
Christmas Carol. Yeah.
there you go, long day, where it's like these kind of haunting words of warning,
Mm.
and it almost felt like the album without it was like it just felt like it was missing something. It felt like
Mm.
it didn't have this like kind of ambiguous, continuous thought that linked everything. It felt very much like maybe there's a sad businessman there, but it's not quite. Whereas with him sort of narrating this story or like giving a warning from the future, felt really like it tied it all together, and it came from listening to Dark Side of the Moon, which was like, oh my god, and he's throughout all of it, he's the same guy, and that's so cool. How do we do that?
Yeah. Because he appears, what is it, twice? He appears on Apology Letter to My Loving Wife and Mr. Fantastic on the outro there, is it?
He appears on WTF um, towards the end of the song.
Right.
He appears on Baby Be Mine.
Oh, yes, yes, it does. Before it turns into the drum and bass track, goes from the rumba vibes through to the drum and bass.
He's in there. And then he's right at the end as well before it goes into Freak. And then he's on Apology Letter, and he's on. That might be it. I wonder if that's it. That he was on. There was a final track that got cut, which it just wasn't quite working the way I wanted it to, and it might appear on a deluxe, so I won't say too much about it.
Okay, fair enough.
It cut the sad businessman's story at a point where I didn't feel like I could continue it afterwards. It felt like it just kind of closed it, and there was like it was too complete.
Right.
Whereas ending it on Forget About It kind of left room for it to continue going. But he's on that final track, and I'm sad that that his actual voice lines on that, because it's actually, I think it's possibly the best bit, got cut. But who knows? It might see the light of day at some point.
Yeah, lovely. That would be great. That would be great to I suppose have maybe a full stop right to the record, because I do think Forget About it is a great full stop to a great record, you know.
Mhm.
Like I love the bit crushed vocals on the intro and I suppose even throughout it.
Forget about it. Forget about it.
Was that just a filter, like a vocal filter, or how did you do that?
That song has been around for so long. Like the files are like so many different files. I actually don't know if I remember how. I think it is just a filter. I
Gotcha.
think it's just a bit crushed. I might have run it through an amp.
Oh,
Trying to remember.
all right.
I ran it through an amp. Oh no, I'll tell you what I did. I ran it through my bit crush filter, and I ran it through my phone.
Right.
And it was when I had like a bit of a messed up speaker and recorded that.
Nice.
Which is why it sounds. But then, but it's layered, and
Of course. Yeah.
all of that lovely little magic behind the scenes.
Yeah, the bass on that track as well.
I keep on running and running and running. Baby, I try to hide it, but I see it on the radio. Keep on running, but you see me through the stereo. I'm feeling something, but I'd rather keep my eyes closed. Hold tight and tell me, don't let me go.
I think it would be an unbelievable track live, right? Do you have any, I suppose, aspirations to perform this live, or are you happy for this to be like a project that is, it's complete and it's a package and it's released? Or I suppose, have you thought about the idea of performing it live and how you would do it?
Yes. Something I'm working on at the minute. I'm a massive perfectionist, so it kind of has to be, it has to feel cohesive to all the rest of the stuff, which takes quite a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And but it also needs to feel different enough that it's not just you're watching the same song be performed back at you, exactly as you've heard it on your phone or
Yeah.
on streaming services. That's I hip hop and rap are like my alongside I guess like punk are like my two kind of huge influences.
Mm.
Um, and I've been to so many rap shows where they're just playing to a backing track, and I'm like, well, I could have just listened to this.
What's the point? Yeah.
And especially if it's like a half-baked performance anyway, you're kind of like, what the fuck did I pay
Yeah,
all this
yeah.
money? So it kind of has to feel like a different version. There's live versions for each of the tracks that I'm working on now, which are like slightly different, maybe a bit more cinematic to kind of like push the narrative further, and then it's about the performance and all of that kind of stuff. And then there's some unreleased stuff that I've been working on since Sucker went off to mix and master. That might make a little appearance. Teaser of the next stuff. Which is feeling very, very aggressive and very it feels good,
Right.
and kind of punk, but also like funny. So that'll be making an appearance at some point. But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, uh, aiming for sort of summer. I've got lot on at work, but hopefully around then we'll have a better, or May have a better picture of what the live show looks like for Billy Kazam.
By end of Q2.
That's the goal.
End of Q2. Right. That's an unbelievable, I suppose, deadline that you set for yourself there, right? That like very ambitious, right? Like you've just released an album, right? February 20th, I believe it was released, right?
Yeah.
So to have another album out within 4 months, or at least like have a live show ready to go 4 months from that is different from the track, and like isn't like there's an awful lot to all these tracks, right? There's an awful lot of logistics to this. So I do think it is quite ambitious, right? I'd love to see it, right? To see it done. Um, but but I'd say give yourself some leeway on that, you know,
I mean, a sort of ethos, I guess, is always like shoot for the moon, and if you miss, end up in the stars.
in the stars
You
for
know,
sure.
um, I'm a massive workaholic anyway, so and
Just
also
different work. It's just different work.
just different work, and also you just have to like one of my biggest philosophies is like if you really want it, you will make it happen. Obviously, I'm a very privileged white dude saying that, so wanting to make it work is very different to other people. But I do, I'm an American citizen, and I think that as much as America has absolutely failed to live up to this, but the idea that you can work your ass off and make it is a beautiful thing to at least strive towards.
Absolutely.
And I think that it would sort of suck. I always say to myself, like, if you died and didn't give it everything, like I don't want, if you die tomorrow and it's like, well, did you give it everything you've got? Have you given it 1,000,001%? If not, then maybe you didn't want it that badly.
I mean, that is true to some degree. I mean, I do think that there are other factors that come into play there as well, right? That it's not simply a matter of desire and wanting, right? That
No, it definitely isn't. But in terms of a work ethic,
oh,
it's
sure, in terms of work ethic, absolutely.
kind of keep pushing if you
Yeah.
want. There's a
I
million
mean,
ways to derail anything.
yeah, I mean, look, I've got stuff in the back of my head, the back of my head that I want to come back to, at some point in the future, right? Like putting on shows that, you know, I'm emceeing, right? That like I'm not performing at, but I'm giving other people a platform to perform on, right? That's one of the big things that I want to do in the next couple of years, ideally. And it's something that I thought about before, but life circumstances get in the way, right? Different bits and pieces like that. But it's not gone away, right? It's still there, right? I
Yeah,
still want to do that, right?
100%. It's just it's more of like I guess for me a principle, like a North Star of like a guide,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of like I'm a type 1 diabetic, so like God knows that gets in the way most of the time. But it's about just being sort of like constant optimism, like I can do it, I can, and
Yeah, yeah.
maybe you will.
Yeah. And look, believing in yourself is very important to get this stuff done as well, right? Um, yeah,
Especially if you know, as creative people, you know, we're so prone to like
that doubt, right?
that doubt and like shitting on yourself and shitting
Yeah, yeah.
on work. That it's like, you know, if you've got like the sort of like the like you've got to do the radical opposite of like being like lie to yourself or like fake it till you make it or
Yes, yes, very much so. In much the same way as like Billy Kazam is the persona, right? That your other person couldn't do it, right?
yeah,
Or wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. In much the same way as I suppose I did, right? That friends of mine gave me a nickname in college, and that kind of became my on-stage persona uh, for when I was in the band. And when he went on stage, he was in your face. He was brash. He was like putting the foot up on monitors. He was, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
getting on stage and moshing and circle whipping. I used to have long hair and that kind of stuff, right? But off stage, nah, that wasn't me. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, exactly. And that fake it till you make it thing is like well, I mean, it's worked out for me so far. There's also there's like that like I mean, bring up a very controversial person, but Mr. Kanye West.
mm.
I was watching that like documentary that his friend made about him from like the early days. And there's that like thing where he's like, you know, everyone thinks I'm a dickhead because I'm saying like, oh no, I am the best. But it's like the rationale is like, you know, if nobody else is going to say it, then someone has to. You know, you have to believe in yourself as much as you possibly can
Mm.
in order to like almost like force yourself to make it, which I feel like there's some validity in some of that.
I mean, it's that sports psychologist thing as well, right? Of you have to believe that you are the best that there is, because if you don't, then you're probably going to go in there and underperform, right?
Exactly. Exactly. You
Right.
have to like believe it 110%, even if like deep down you're like, ah, maybe
Yeah.
not.
To the point of like, what was it, the Michael Jordan documentary where he was like creating grudges in his head, right, with other
Yeah.
people, right, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe not to
Yeah.
that degree, right, but yeah, that's what he did, right.
Well, I mean, he was one of the greatest, so
He was one of the greatest.
onto something.
But look, that's I suppose everything that I wanted to talk about in terms of the album. But I know they've got a new music video coming out. As of this recording, it's coming out Saturday, March 7th. Is that correct?
Should be out Friday. Well, it's like Friday at midnight. That kind of
Perfect.
that kind of
Perfect.
technically Saturday. I don't really know which one to say.
March 6th, March 7th, right?
Yeah,
Whichever.
around there.
Is it going to go on YouTube or is it going to be on Instagram or where can people find that?
that'll be on YouTube. I don't know if you can put a video that long
On Instagram.
yeah, that was the I'm excited. I'm excited for that to come out, and so my lovely friends who worked on it with me. Um, it's we made it a long time ago, and you can tell because my hair has you can track my hair through all of the promo. So in
Right.
the
Okay.
very first promo, it's my hair is actually quite a lot shorter than it is now. Now having been through quite a lot of the promo, my hair's getting here. In the video, my hair's down to like here. Uh,
Right.
so we made it a couple summers ago, and it was sort of the first instance of the sad businessman coming to life, and from there, all the rest of it kind of happened.
Mm.
But yeah, that's coming out Friday, and we're very excited. Me and my friends are very excited to show the world that they put a lot of work in, and they are sick of me delaying it. So I'm sure they'll be very excited when that's out. That should be cool. Yeah,
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. It'll be, it's a great concept. It's a great album, right? You've done a wonderful job with it. You should be very, very proud of yourself.
thank you very much.
And I would implore anyone who sees this to go out and listen to Sucker by Billy Kazam.
Please,
And it
please pay
and
my rent.
is there anything else you want to I suppose plug while I have you here?
Um, Free Palestine. fuck Israel, fuck ICE, you know, uh,
Fair. Yeah.
all of that stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really promoting anything else at the moment, but I mean, I guess say stay tuned because I think the next stuff that's coming out people will really enjoy. If you liked It Feels Good, the rest of it is very sort of in that vein, almost experimental punk, electronic punk, kind of heavy pushing forward, that kind of thing.
Love it. Love it. I will leave links to the music video in the description of the video. I will leave links to your Instagram so that people can find you and be kept abreast of developments. But Billy, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.